The Keystone Center ECU is a competency-based program that utilizes a patient's strengths in order to promote recovery from sexually compulsive behaviors and trauma. Our staff consists of a multidisciplinary team who incorporate the 12 steps, a family systems perspective, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychoeducation, and a focus on trauma. Today we're going to hear from Alex Kapnek, a therapist at Keystone ECU. Alex is a licensed professional counselor, certified sex addiction therapist, and a nationally certified counselor who is EMDR trained. Alex has extensive experience and a passion for providing quality care. She received her Master of Arts in Professional Clinical Counseling from LaSalle University. Prior to joining Keystone, Alex worked at John F. Kennedy Behavioral Health Center in Philadelphia, where Alex provided dual diagnosis outpatient treatment for adults with co-occurring mental health and substance abuse diagnoses. If you would like to learn more about how Keystone Center ECU can help you or a loved one, visit us at www.keystonecenterecu.net or call us at 1-800-733-6840.
Hello, I'm Alex Kapnek, licensed professional counselor and CSAT, certified sex addiction therapist, and today I want to talk to you guys about pornography. I'm recently seeing more and more clients come in with compulsive pornography use, and I kind of just want to go through what makes porn addictive, why the clients we treat are attracted to certain types of porn, and I have some case examples to kind of demonstrate this for everybody, and I'll just dive right in. So pornography is basically just an image of flesh that the clients we treat, sex addicts, use as a drug. And pornography use is extremely widespread. Every year, Pornhub publishes statistics on pornography use. And the statistics for 2019 are pretty astonishing. So in 2019, there were 42 billion visits to Pornhub. That's an average of 115 million visits per day, or 80,032 visits per minute. And remember, this is only through Pornhub. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of other sites that have pornography posted on the internet. With the Pornhub statistics, 25% of Pornhub's users are ages 18 to 24. 36% of users are ages 25 to 34. So that means that more than 60% of the users are under the age of 34. So I think we're going to see the problem of pornography addiction really kind of blow up in the next couple years. I mean, it's already blowing up, but it's going to be even more of an issue that we see coming into our offices. Of these users, 70% are men and 30% are women. And the number of women watching pornography is slowly growing every year. Probably also something that we're going to see more and more of coming into our offices, because women definitely need this treatment as much as men do, and there's even more of a stigma that they might face. So hopefully they can make it to our offices. Users perceive internet porn as far more compelling than porn of the past. The reason for this is the unending novelty of porn. And basically, internet porn is the crack cocaine of pornography. You can find anything you want. There is unlimited access, it's affordable, it's anonymous, and with a click of a mouse, you're in control of what happens, what to play, and when it should end. As a culture, it's hard to believe that sexual activity can lead to addiction. Our culture likes to believe that sex is healthy, and it is healthy, but internet pornography is not sex. Watching a screen full of naked body parts won't magically protect a guy from addiction. A Dutch study even found that of all online activities, pornography has the most potential to become addictive. So, can porn literally change your brain? Scientists once believed that your brain finished growing in childhood. We now know that the brain goes on changing throughout life. It's constantly rewiring itself and laying down new nerve connections. I'm going to give you guys a quick crash course in brain chemistry. So we all have the brain reward circuitry that makes food and sex rewarding. It exists in an area of our brain called the reward system. Food and sex are behaviors that have to be rewarded because they are survival mechanisms. They're primary drives in all mammals. In a healthy brain, these rewards have feedback mechanisms for satiety or enough. In someone with addiction, the circuitry becomes dysfunctional such that the message to the individual becomes more, 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 which leads to the pathological pursuit of rewards and or relief through the use of substances or certain behaviors. These drugs or behaviors continue to increase dopamine levels without giving the brain a break. So the more hits a user takes, the more pornography sites the user visits, videos watched, images looked at, the more dopamine that floods their brain, and the stronger their urges are to keep using. Pornography dumps abnormal amounts of dopamine into the brain. The ancient brain circuit evolved to drive us towards food, sex, and bonding. So as a consequence, like any extreme versions of these natural rewards register in the brain as unique and highly valuable. That is, we get extra dopamine for high-calorie food or novel pornography. And too much dopamine can override our natural brain mechanisms. Quick example, when researchers gave rats unlimited access to enticing junk food, almost all of them binged to obesity. This is why 4 out of 5 adult Americans are overweight and half of them obese, that is, addicted to food. In contrast to natural rewards, drugs, such as alcohol or cocaine, will only hook about 10 to 15% of users, whether they're human or rats. So 1 in 10 for drugs and 4 out of 5 for food. Porn falls into this category of food. So basically these natural rewards like food and sex are much, much more addictive than drugs or alcohol. So scientists have long known that sexual interest and performance can be increased simply by introducing something new, like a different sexual position, a toy, change of partner. And that's because the brain responds to new sexual stimuli by pumping out more and more dopamine, flooding the brain just like a drug would. So what happens when these behaviors, like this pornography use, becomes even more than just like something new? And that's like when it becomes super normal. A supernormal stimulus, which is what porn is a stimulus that elicits a response stronger than the stimulus for which it evolved, even if it's artificial. So there was this study done that showed that male butterflies, when given the opportunity to mate with female butterflies, or cardboard butterflies that have exaggerated patterns and colors on the wings to make them brighter and flashier than could ever be found in nature, the male butterflies prefer these cardboard exaggerated butterflies to real female butterflies. So, think about these cardboard butterflies as like the supermodels of butterflies. And that's what porn is for sex. It's bigger, brighter, more exciting. Internet pornography provides an endless stream of fresh erotic images delivered at high speed in vivid color 24/7. There's literally videos being updated every minute on some of these websites. So before consumers even start to get bored, they can always just get another dopamine boost by clicking on something different, something more stimulating, possibly more hardcore than before. And, what this does to the brain is like those hits of dopamine from endless online pornography cause 2 things to happen. So first, they tell your brain that you've hit the evolutionary jackpot. You can have endless opportunities to pass on your genes. So our natural drive, have sex and reproduce, pretty much hit the jackpot. The second thing they do is they trigger a molecular switch in the brain called delta phosphate. And delta phosphate is the molecular switch for addiction. It flips a switch in your brain that causes lasting changes that make you much more vulnerable to addiction. the reason for this is like when delta phosphate starts to accumulate in your brain's reward circuit, this buildup of delta phosphate changes the brain and promotes a cycle of binging and craving. So what it does, so delta phosphate builds new brain connections so you can remember experiences and repeat them later. It also forms connections to details associated with the experience. So this creates more and more cues, which is why somebody in treatment for pornography addiction should really try to be careful of what types of media they're exposing themselves to, like watching television with TVMA ratings or movies with R ratings could be really high risk behaviors. Even things like going to the beach or like being around a college campus, like these are really high risk behaviors because these cues can trigger anything that the brain associates with the pleasurable experience, the use of pornography, basically. So gradually these pathways become sensitized, meaning like they're easily triggered by many, many different cues. So what does your brain do about this with this excess of dopamine? When the brain is overloaded with dopamine, another chemical called Krebs is created to regulate the amount of dopamine, and that chemical is like the brakes on a runaway reward center. And Krebs is why porn that was once exciting to users stops having the same effect. And this is when you start to see like escalation of use. And this brain chemical Krebs also causes tolerance. So really, like the binging and craving broken down, porn users become desensitized from repeated overloads of dopamine. This is why addicts don't feel normal without their fix or dopamine high. And even other things that used to make them happy, like going out with friends, playing a favorite game, they just stop providing enjoyment because of the dulling effects of continued use. Some other things that happens, some users report feeling anxious or down until they can't get back to the porn. Porn users might often find themselves giving more of their time and attention to porn, sometimes to the detriment of relationships, school, or work. You know, as they delve deeper into habit, their choice of porn usually turns more hardcore, and many who try to stop using porn find it really difficult to stop. To just sum up all this brain chemistry stuff, the brain is made up of over 100 billion nerves called neurons that travel through pathways, and these neurons carry the signals between different parts of the brain. So think about a neuron pathway like a trail in the woods, and every time someone uses the trail, it gets a little wider and more permanent. So similarly, every time a message travels down a neural pathway, the pathway gets stronger. So literally every time you use porn, it's the desire to use porn is getting stronger. And you know, believe it or not, porn can actually overpower the brain's natural ability to have real sex. And that's because porn creates the perfect conditions and triggers the release of the right chemicals to make lasting changes in the brain. So porn versus real life. I mean, porn consumers can get so obsessed chasing flashy fantasies that they miss out on real life relationships. And, you know, as I've said before, porn provides access to any sexual fantasy without another person. So for our clients, these young people coming of age that are watching porn, like literally more than 60% of the population that's under the age of 34. So there's no risk of exposure that you get in a real relationship. Like there's no possibility of experiencing shame or feeling vulnerable. Like you don't actually have to be intimate with somebody. I mean, that sounds appealing for these people that are growing up with pornography and also growing up with technology and not really learning how to have real human connection. So some of the things that happen to men that abuse pornography, chronic ejaculation, dysfunction, delayed ejaculation, brain fog, concentration problems, lethargy, lack of motivation, social anxiety, emotional numbness, declining interest in a real partner, and escalation to porn that doesn't match your original sexual taste or sexual orientation. So all the above conditions and symptoms are significantly removed when the user stops watching internet pornography. So a couple of takeaways, like, so what distinguishes addiction from just like use of pornography is that it's frequent, it's compulsive, it's distressing, and it impacts functioning. So there's these things that I've talked about before: impaired control over use, cravings, tolerance, inability to stop, and social impairment, so failure to fulfill obligations, work, school, home, continued use despite consequences in these areas. There is like risky use, so continued use despite physical or psychological problems, like things like difficulty getting or maintaining an erection. And then there is tolerance and withdrawal. So going back to escalation of use, the internet affords the possibility that when satiation renders certain pornography images less exciting, more extreme versions can be found online to heighten arousal. And for some people, this escalation leads to a search for imagery that might incorporate increasing levels of violence, or possibly increasingly young subjects. And, you know, a lot of times as clinicians, we're like, how did this happen? And in exploring porn addiction with the many clients I've worked with, I've found there's never one single cause for porn addiction. So yeah, like porn use changes the brain and like is pretty naturally addictive, but there's also like some characteristics that are pretty common among people that develop porn addiction. So like some big feelings that I've noticed, like feelings of desperation, anxiety, shame, fear, loneliness, and sadness. All these feelings like fuel use. They really fuel use in, you know, somebody that's struggling with any addiction. And then you know, pornography allows users to numb all their urges that are not sexual. And because of this, users can like look to porn to provide them with feelings of power, control, superiority, even things like feelings of fear, humiliation. And in addition, there are usually multiple life experiences that lead users to addiction and the interest in type of porn that would be considered taboo. So with the extensive nature of internet pornography, clients are able to find specific scenarios that are compelling for them, such as incest porn, BDSM, or porn involving urination or defecation. So I just want to like roughly give you an idea of what treatment looks like. So treatment for compulsive pornography use involves understanding the draw to these certain types of taboo pornography, and how kind of the decision-making process around viewing these types of pornography has been hijacked. It's also really important to understand the family of origin and any trauma experienced throughout the client's life. And, you know, obviously treatment has to be individualized to each client, and one of the big things that we have to look at is helping the client break through denial about the connections between past events and current interest in pornography. We see a lot of the time that clients want to deny this connection, especially the one client that I described earlier that had an interest in incest porn. He really wanted to deny the connection there. So another big part of treatment is addressing the past events by processing the blocked affect and allowing clients to experience that in a safe space. It's extremely important to address the family of origin issues and trauma in treatment. And, you know, EMDR is personally a great choice to use in processing and addressing that trauma. We also have to create healthy ways to cope with current stressors, and you know, that's done through the teaching of a bunch of grounding skills. Some of the big things that we're using at Keystone right now, emotionally focused tapping, coherence breathing, container imagery, body scans. We have our clients pretty much doing meditation every morning. And treatment is long-term. Like, for some of our clients, I'd say for most of our clients, we can try to uncover, like, why they're interested in certain types of porn, but like dealing with the trauma that is associated with these events is not something that can always be completely addressed in 30, 42 days of treatment. Like for this kind of complex trauma, the treatment's long term. But being in an inpatient setting like Keystone, you can actually start to really get to the roots of these issues in a safe place where you're only focusing on treatment and don't have any other life concerns because you're in a controlled treatment facility. Pornography is everywhere, and treatment is possible. We can help you begin your journey to recovery and a porn-free life.
If you would like to learn more about how Keystone Center ECU can help you or a loved one, visit us at www.keystonecenterecu.net or call us at 1-800-733-6840.